I'm 61 years old, and for most of my life, I believed in doing what was right, what was expected. I married young, raised 2 children, and worked part-time as a school librarian for nearly 30 years. Love, to me, was always quiet, predictable. A steady rhythm of shared dinners, summer vacations, and Sunday morning coffee with my husband, Greg. I never looked for more. I never thought I needed more. But sometimes life sneaks up on you in ways you can't predict or undo. And I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gray and moody, the kind of day that made everything feel just a little heavier. I had just finished a community garden committee meeting at the rec center and was waiting out front, arms crossed, the cool breeze nudging at my sweater sleeves. Greg was supposed to pick me up, but he'd called an hour earlier, stuck in traffic from a business lunch. Said he might be another 45 minutes. I didn't mind the wait so much, until it started to drizzle. That's when David pulled up in his black SUV. I recognized the car before I saw his face. He leaned over and rolled the window down, flashing that easy, effortless smile of his. "Need a ride, Ellie?" David was my neighbor, Karen's husband. We'd lived across the street from them for over 10 years, exchanged holiday cookies, small talk over lawnmowers, that sort of thing. David was always polite, always helpful. He once helped me carry a new love seat into the house when Greg tweaked his back. I hesitated, just for a second. "You sure?" I asked, glancing up at the darkening sky. "Of course," he said, reaching over to open the passenger door. "Hop in. Karen's out with her sister, and I'm just heading back from Home Depot." So I got in. The car smelled like cedar chips and aftershave, the kind of scent that hits you softly, almost comfortingly. I buckled my seatbelt and smoothed my skirt over my lap, stealing a glance at him as he merged into traffic. We made polite conversation at first, weather, garden projects, the new couple down the street. But somewhere between Maple and 4th, the energy shifted. "You ever feel like—" He started, then paused, his eyes still on the road. "Like the days are all starting to feel the same." I turned to him, unsure how to answer. "Lately, yeah, more than I'd like to admit." He nodded, jaw tightening. "It's strange, isn't it? You build this whole life, house, job, marriage, and one day you look around and realize you're still waiting for something." His words felt too close to thoughts I hadn't dared speak aloud. I looked out the window, watching rain streak the glass, my heart tapping a little faster. "You and Greg ever talk about that? About shaking things up?" I smiled, but it was thin. Greg's more of a routine guy. He likes predictability. I used to think I did too. David didn't respond right away. He just nodded again, his hands firm on the wheel. We pulled onto my street, but instead of driving directly to my house, he slowed and eased the car to a stop by the park just a block away. "You mind if we sit for a minute?" he asked, his voice lower now. "I don't know why. I just don't feel like being alone right this second." I should have said no. I should have unbuckled, thanked him, and walked the rest of the way home. But instead, I stayed. We sat there in silence for a moment, the rain picking up, soft thuds against the roof filling the space between us. Then he turned to me. "Can I ask you something personal, Ellie?" I met his eyes. They were warm but searching, like he wasn't just asking to be polite. "Sure," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you ever miss being seen? I mean, really seen? not for being a wife or a neighbor or someone's mom, but just you. My breath caught. I didn't expect the question, and I didn't expect how much it would sting. I used to think that kind of attention was behind me, I said slowly, like it belonged to a younger version of me, someone I used to know. His eyes didn't leave mine. I don't think that version ever really leaves. I think she just gets quieter, waiting for someone to notice she's still there. The quiet stretched again, but this time it was humming charged. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't just him seeing me. I was seeing him too. The vulnerability, the loneliness, the need. And that scared me more than anything else. I looked down at my hands in my lap, folded tightly together. David, He leaned back slightly, giving me space, but his voice was steady. You don't have to say anything. I needed to say it. Because you're not invisible, Ellie. Not to me. The rain was still falling, the world outside dim and soft, like a dream you don't want to wake from. I finally looked at him again, and something in me shifted, not into recklessness, but into honesty. A part of me that had been asleep for years stirred, and though nothing had happened yet, something had already changed. We both knew it. The rain had slowed to a gentle mist as David finally pulled the SUV into my driveway. The house looked just like it always did, gray shutters, trimmed hedges, porch light glowing faintly in the early dusk. But nothing felt the same. I stepped out of the car with a quiet thank you and walked to the front door without looking back, clutching my purse a little too tightly. Inside, the stillness wrapped around me. Greg wasn't home yet. The house hummed with its usual silence, refrigerator buzzing faintly, the old wall clock ticking off the minutes. I kicked off my shoes and stood in the foyer for a moment, unsure what to do with myself. I should have started dinner. I should have turned on the news or folded the laundry. Instead, I walked into the living room and sat down slowly, my hands resting uselessly in my lap. David's voice echoed in my head. You're not invisible. Not to me. It had been years since someone spoke to me like that. Not just politely. Not in passing. But as if he truly saw me, saw the woman beneath the layers of routine and expectations. I tried to shake it off. Tried to focus on the sound of the rain or the familiar creak of the floor under my feet. But something had shifted. It wasn't just about David. It was about me. About a version of myself I had buried under years of practicality and habit. The garage door rumbled open around 6:45, and a few moments later, Greg walked in, tired and a little damp, loosening his tie. Sorry about earlier, he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Traffic was a mess. It's okay, I said, smiling softly. I got a ride from David. Oh, nice of him. Greg didn't think twice about it. He hung up his jacket, opened the fridge, and grabbed a beer like he did every night. And just like that, the world slid back into place. But now I was watching it all happen from a few steps back, like someone observing her own life from the outside. That night, as Greg snored beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind replayed the way David had looked at me, not just with interest, but with recognition, as if we were both searching for something we hadn't admitted aloud. The next few days passed quietly. I kept busy with errands and volunteer work at the local library, but every time I saw David's SUV across the street, I felt a jolt in my chest. I avoided him, mostly on purpose, but not completely. Saturday morning, I was watering the garden when I heard footsteps on the gravel path behind me. Hey there. I turned, and there he was. Jeans, a gray t-shirt, a cup of coffee in his hand. He looked relaxed, natural, too comfortable for my heart's liking. "Morning," I said, hoping the watering can would distract me. "I hope I didn't overstep the other day," he said quietly. "I've been thinking about it." I hesitated, then shook my head. "No, you didn't." He took a sip from his cup. I wasn't trying to make things complicated. I just felt like we connected. And maybe it's selfish, but I don't get that feeling much these days. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The truth was, I had felt it too. "Karen's been distant," he went on, surprising me with his honesty. "For years, really. We live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, but we haven't really talked in ages." His words settled heavily between us. "I'm not here to make a mess of your life," he added. "But I meant what I said. You deserve to feel alive, and not just in memory." I finally looked up at him. "It's not that simple." "I know," he said, then smiled faintly. "But sometimes the right things aren't." He turned and walked back toward his driveway, leaving me standing there with the watering can still pouring onto already drenched soil. That afternoon, I stood at the mirror, brushing my hair longer than necessary, looking at myself like I was trying to remember someone, the woman I used to be, the one who danced barefoot in the kitchen, the one who once read poetry under the covers, the one who hadn't been seen in a long time. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel ashamed for missing her. Later that evening, I was in the backyard picking tomatoes when I heard the soft rustle of someone approaching. I turned, expecting Greg. It was David. He paused near the edge of the fence, hands in his pockets. His voice was quiet, almost cautious. "I won't come closer if you don't want me to." I said nothing, just looked at him, the way twilight softened the lines on his face. There was a kindness there, a longing too. "I had a dream about you," he admitted. "You were laughing. We were sitting by the lake, and you were wearing a blue dress." I woke up smiling. My breath caught in my throat. "I know this is crazy," he said, "but I had to tell you." For a long moment, I just stood there, tomatoes in my hand, heart trembling like a leaf. "I should go," he added, already backing away. "Wait," I said. He stopped. "You didn't do anything wrong," I whispered. "But I need time to figure out what's happening inside me. Because something is happening." He nodded slowly, as if he already knew. "I'll wait," he said, "as long as you need." And then he turned and disappeared into the shadows of the yard, leaving me breathless under the fading light of a quiet summer evening. The days that followed felt strangely hollow and overly vivid, all at once, like I was moving through my life with new eyes but an old heart. Everything looked the same, but I was changing, quietly, in ways I couldn't fully understand. Greg, bless him, was still the man I married, steady, routine, well-meaning. But now, every time he brushed past me at the kitchen sink or asked what was for dinner without meeting my eyes, something inside me ached. Not out of anger, but out of recognition. He didn't see me. Not really. Not the woman I was becoming again. One afternoon, I stood at the grocery store staring at 2 brands of marinara sauce for far too long. I wasn't even thinking about pasta. I was thinking about David, the way he had looked at me, spoken to me, not just as someone's wife or neighbor, but as a woman. I walked through the aisles distracted, forgetting half the list. And when I got to the checkout line, my phone buzzed. "David, driving past the park. You around?" I stared at the message for a long moment. My thumb hovered. Then, without thinking too much, I typed, Meet me there in 10. I told myself it was innocent, just a conversation, just some clarity. But as I pulled up to the park and saw him leaning against his car in that same soft gray t-shirt from a few days ago, my heart betrayed me. It leaped. He opened the passenger door for me, and I slid in, avoiding his eyes for a moment longer than I meant to. "I'm glad you came," he said. "I didn't plan to," I replied honestly. "But here I am." He nodded, and we sat in a comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching a little league game unfold in the distance. The laughter of children, the whistle of a coach, it all made the world feel real, even as mine spun just slightly off balance. "I've been thinking about you," he finally said. "Probably more than I should." I looked at him then. "David, this could ruin things." "I know," he said softly, "but it could also be the thing that wakes us up." I swallowed hard. I'm not the kind of woman who cheats. I never have been. "I'm not asking you to be," he replied. I want to know if you feel it too. This pull between us, this connection. Because I swear, Ellie, I haven't felt this alive in years. I felt it. Of course I did. But I also felt the guilt pressing down on me like a hand to the chest. "I don't know what this is," I whispered. "It's okay not to," he said. Can we talk? Can we be honest, even if it doesn't go anywhere?" So we talked, for hours, about our marriages, our disappointments, our fears. He told me about the nights he slept on the couch just to avoid another fight with Karen. I told him about the loneliness that had crept into my bones, even with Greg sitting across the dinner table every night. I confessed things I hadn't even admitted to myself, about how I missed tenderness, missed feeling desired. Not just for my role in someone's life, but for who I was at my core. And David listened, really listened. Not with pity, but with understanding, with presence. As the sky darkened into evening, he walked me to my car. The air between us was thick with something unsaid, something too fragile to name. "I'm not asking you for anything," he said gently. "I just don't want to forget what this feels like." He reached out then, not for a kiss, not for anything bold, but just to touch my hand. His fingers grazed mine, and for a moment I let them stay. It was nothing, really, and yet everything. When I got home, Greg was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels, a plate of reheated leftovers on the coffee table. He looked up briefly. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, hanging up my keys. "Just ran into someone at the store." He nodded and returned to the TV. And as I stood there in the hallway, I realized something painful. My life hadn't changed, but I had. Later that night, I stood by the window in the dark, the street lamp casting a golden hue across the driveway. David's house sat just across the street, his porch light flickering slightly. And though we were apart, I felt him there, like an echo in my chest. The connection between us hadn't gone away. It had only deepened, and I didn't know where it would lead. But I knew I couldn't pretend it hadn't begun. The following week passed like a slow-moving storm. Nothing loud, nothing obvious, but I could feel the air around me changing. I found myself more reflective, more cautious with my words, more aware of every glance, every silence, every routine gesture that once meant nothing and now carried weight. I hadn't seen David since that night in the park, not in person, at least. But he had texted once. "David, I miss talking to you. Just wanted you to know." I didn't reply right away. I stared at the message for hours, unsure whether answering would make things better or worse. In the end, I simply wrote, "Me, I miss it too." That was all, but it was enough to keep the thread between us alive. Then, on a quiet Thursday morning, I opened the front door to grab the newspaper and saw David standing by his mailbox. He looked up as if sensing me, and our eyes locked. He gave a small nod. I returned it.